Hello, immigrants. Let's get the record straight. When people rant about immigrants taking over America, they forget one simple, ugly truth. The first immigrants weren't welcome, they invaded. Before the United States, before the colonies, before the Constitution, this land was already home to the Iroquois, the Navajo, the Cherokees, the Sioux nations with governments, cities, trade routes, and languages. They were here for thousands of years, as far back as 15,000 BCE, before the Common Era. Then came the Europeans. The Spanish landed in 1513 when Ponce de Leon reached Florida. By 1565, they built San Agustin, the first permanent European settlement in what is now the United States. The English came in 1607, settling in Jamestown, Virginia. Then in 1620, the so-called Pilgrims arrived. There were about 102 of them crowded onto the Mayflower. You remember this story from elementary school. They were supposed to sail with a second ship, the Speedwell, but it didn't make the trip. They were heading to Virginia, but landed in Massachusetts by mistake. They were off course, but they stayed anyway. The land that they stepped on already belonged to the Wanapano people. Did they ask permission? Did they follow laws? No. They planted flags, claimed the land, and said God gave it to them. They weren't settlers, they were colonizers. So now let's talk about the founding fathers, since people still treat them like saints. George Washington, born in 1732, Virginia. His great-grandfather, John Washington, arrived in 1656 from England. He made his fortune through land theft and enslaved labor. Thomas Jefferson, born in 1743, his family came from England in the 1600s. He enslaved over 600 people during his lifetime while preaching about liberty. John Adams, born in 1735, descended from Puritan immigrants who came in the 1630s, fled religious persecution, then built a system that gave rights to white landowners only. Benjamin Franklin, born in 1706, Boston, his father came from England in 1683. Franklin enslaved people early in his life before eventually opposing slavery. Alexander Hamilton, born 1755 or 1757 on the island of Nevis. Yes, he was an immigrant, but one who built a system that locked out the rest. Let's not lie about the Constitution. It was written in 1787 by white, wealthy, land-owning, and mostly slave-owning men. The word slave doesn't appear in the Constitution, but the 3/5 compromise does. It counted black people as 3/5 of a person, not for their benefit, but to give slave states more power in Congress. So, who did the Constitution protect? White men, with land, with wealth, with power. Not women, not Native people, not black people, not immigrants. And now let's talk about the border. The one people claim immigrants are flooding. The border wasn't always there. It was created in 1848. Let me say that again. It was created in 1848 after the Mexican-American War with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Mexico was forced to give up half its territory, what is now California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and Texas. Then in 1854, the U.S. bought more land in the Gadsden Purchase, finalizing the shape of the U.S.-Mexico border we know today for about $15 million in those days. So let's be honest. The border was drawn by war, not by culture, not by consent. Now, you want to talk about who came here and why? Well, let's get into it. The Spanish came for gold and spread Catholicism. The English came for land, wealth, and power. The Dutch came in 1624 for trade control. The French came for territory in the 1600s and 1700s. And the Africans, they didn't come. They were stolen. Shipped across the ocean starting in 1619, shackled, whipped, bought, sold, and forced to build an empire that never paid them back. Then came the Irish in the 1840s, fleeing famine. The Germans in the 1850s and 60s, fleeing war. The Chinese in the 1850s, who helped build railroads, then got banned by the Chinese Inclusion Act of 1882. Jews, Italians, Poles, and Russians came in the 1880s and 1920s, escaping dictatorship. They were called criminals, anarchists, and venom. They were told, you won't belong here. You're not American enough. Go back. And here we are, 20th and 21st century. Mexican immigrants, many of whose families were here before there was even a United States. Central Americans fleeing gun violence and U.S.-backed civil wars. Haitians, Cubans, Vietnamese, Somalians, Afghans, Syrians, people running from chaos America helped create. And now in 2025, people are still coming from India and China, Venezuela, and Nigeria, Ukraine, Colombia, and more. They come for the same reason the colonizers did: a future, a life, a shot at the American dream. And what do they get? Blamed, caged, kidnapped and deported, dehumanized. They're scapegoats. But let me be clear, no immigrant ever stole more land than the first ones. No immigrant ever wrote the 3/5 clause. No immigrant ever claimed God told them to take what wasn't theirs, then build a government to defend it. So if you're angry about people crossing the border, ask yourself, who crossed it first? And who gave them the right? The Constitution didn't fail. It worked exactly as planned to protect the few and shut out the rest. But the people it tried to erase, we're still here. We've marched, we sued, we organized, we built, we're giving back again and again. So don't come at me about real Americans. Talk to me about truth. Talk to me about power. Talk to me about what comes next. Because America doesn't belong to one race, one class, or one bloodline. It never did. It belongs to the people who fight for it, who lived it, who built it every single day. And that includes immigrants, peasants, present and future, and the ones who are kidnapped on the streets, thrown into vans by individuals who are covered with masks and hidden somewhere in a for-profit prison. So if you want to make America great again, admit that you're an immigrant.